Welcome to part 2 of the Learning Python series. So today what we're going to be learning is working with strings. So last episode we got all set up and introduced to variables, so we're going to delve more into those variables starting with strings. So to jump right into it, we'll start with our print function, and we're going to want to print the string that we'll be working with today, and we'll do learning Python. So that'll be our string for today. As we know, if we go ahead and run this code in our console, it will output learning Python. So to start working with these strings, there's some stuff that you can do within the string in order to modify it without having to leave and do any functions. So what I mean by this is rather than if you wanted to make these two separate lines, what you might do is make another line and do Python, and over here learning. So there you get learning Python. Rather than doing this, what you can just do is go into your main string and do /n. So you'll see that it is a different color here. Most all IDEs do it like that. And now if I run this, we get learning Python. There we go. So exactly from the point that this begins will become a new line. So as you can see, I had it right here before, so that put a space right here next to Python because it made this entire section a new line. So you're going to want to keep that in mind when doing it. So now if we do it like this, it'll pop out normally. So \n, that's the first thing. Another use for backslash is you can use it to type characters that normally you would have trouble typing. So for example, if you want to type quotation marks, you can see that it messes up our string here because it thinks that the string ends at learning and then we're missing a quotation mark around Python. So what you can do is you can use the backslash as an escape character, and then I can type the following character will be just typed regardless. So if I put my quotation mark there and I run this, you can see we have learning quotation mark Python. So that's another use case for the backslash character within strings. So moving on to some functions we can use to work with strings. If I just delete this and I make that a variable, so we'll make it new string equals learning Python. And one function is the .lower function. So what I can do is I can put in our new string variable. As we know, if we run this, it'll just print this string up here. And now if I do new string .lower, so this .lower function, if I run this, it will make the entire string lowercase. So it will go through each character in the string and make sure it is lowercase. So if I go through here and I just make random letters capital and I run it, it'll make it lowercase no matter what. So so as expected, following that, we also have the .upper function, and running that, it will make the entire string uppercase. So those can be helpful sometimes. And building on this, we have checks to check whether or not they are lowercase or uppercase. So it's simple, you just put is. Like you're asking the computer, is this uppercase, is this lowercase? So if I run that, we'll get a false because there are lowercase letters within the string. So if I were to delete this and type learning Python, now it's all uppercase, and we run this function, we're going to get a true because it is all uppercase. So let me just reset that. Now similarly, as you can expect, you can do is lower. We know this is going to return a false because there are uppercase letters in there. So there we go. Now if I were to remove those uppercase letters, there we go, this will return true. There you go. So building even further on this, you could make it all uppercase or all lowercase, and check is a lower. So this period is, and then the function is what's going to separate functions within like a line. So for example, I could take new string. We know that if I check if it's lower or upper, it's going to return false either way because it's mixed. So if I wanted to make it all lower and then check, I could do dot lower dot is lower. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting in my variable new string, turning it all lowercase, then checking if it's lowercase. So what this will return is true because I should have an all lowercase string, and then it's being checked if it's lowercase. So there we go, we get a true. Similarly, if I make it all uppercase, then check is upper, we'll get true again. So those are some interesting functions you can use. They will come in handy in simple projects. So another really important function when working with strings is going to be the length function. So we just type it as len, and if I do len and then my string, it will return the length of my string in characters. So if you go up here, we see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So it's 15 characters long. It will include white spaces, blank spaces, and yeah. So this will return the length of your string. Another really important thing when working with strings is indexing. So the index in an index in a string is kind of like the position. It's like another word for the position. So to find an index or a position within a string, you use these like box brackets here. And what you're just going to do is you're going to type in the position. So it's 0. It starts at 0. This will be the confusing thing. So the first, if I wanted to take the first character of a string, I'd do this, and it will return L, which is my first character. If I wanted to get the fourth character, I'd type in 3. So it should print out R. There we go, R. So the confusing thing here is going to be that it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. So the difference is that when you're working with the length of the string, it's counting 1 through whatever, as you would expect. But if you're indexing or looking at the position of things within a string, it will always start at 0. So that's just an important thing to remember. Building on the index of strings, you can find the position of things within a string. So rather than feeding it a number, so I fed it 3 in order to get the fourth character in the string, I can feed it a character and get the number back, the position in the string. So to do this, we're going to use the dot index function. And so new string dot index, and in here is where I will put the substring, aka the character or the string that I'm looking for. So I want to look for what position G is at, for example. So if I put in quotation marks G and then I run that, we'll get position 7 because it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So similar to when you're indexing with numbers, indexing when you're searching for a substring, it's always going to start at 0. So that's, once again, an important thing to remember. The nice thing about the dot index function is it is not just limited to characters. You can also put in entire strings. So for example, I wanted to find the position of Python within this string. So if I run that, it will tell me 9 because, as we know, G is position 7. So it goes, the blank space is 8, and Python starts here at position 9. So it returned 9. One last thing about the dot index function: if you were to look for something that isn't in the string, for example, Z is not in this string, it will return an error. So that's something important to note. And on top of that, something that is important to note is if you find something that occurs twice. For example, in this string, we have multiple instances of the letter N. So if I index N, it will return the first instance of n. So you're going to want to remember that if you're having trouble with the index function, make sure there's not multiple instances of that substring within the parent string, because it will always return the first instance if maybe you're looking for another instance of it. So this .index function is super helpful, and it is used a lot. So really great function. So moving on, we're going to look at our final function when it comes to working with strings, and that's going to be the .replace function. So the .replace function's really helpful. What it will do is it will take you will feed it a substring that occurs within the parent string, and you can replace it with a new string. So for example, pretend I wanted to replace Python with Java. So what I would do is I'd input Python, which we know occurs in this parent string, and then I'd input my new string and I would put Java. So now if I run this, it will print our new string, which is learning Java. As you can see, you can replace things like, for example, learning. Now it'll print out Java Python. So once again, if you ask for it to change something that isn't really there, for example, ZZZ, it will just not do it because there is no instance of ZZZ to change within the string. So that was working with strings. Obviously, there are many more ways you can work with this variable. Maybe we'll delve into that later in the Learning Python series. But for now, these are just the essentials that you'll need to get started. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed.